The laughter started soft, just a few snickers at the back of the brightly decorated fourth-grade classroom, but within seconds, it swelled into a ripple of cruelty that made 9-year-old Ariel Johnson shrink into herself. It was supposed to be the happiest day of the school year. Holiday Gift Exchange Day. The walls were covered with glittering paper snowflakes, red ribbons, and hand-painted stockings. The students were buzzing, holding shiny, store-bought gifts wrapped in glossy paper. Some even bragged about how much their parents spent this year. And at the very front of the room, sitting alone beside her desk, Ariel clutched a small, unevenly wrapped box in her lap. It wasn't shiny. It wasn't fancy. It wasn't store-bought. It was something she made. And that, apparently, was enough reason for the entire room to turn on her. "Why does hers look like trash?" one boy whispered loudly on purpose, pretending not to know she could hear him. Another girl snickered. "My baby brother raps better than that." A few students started recording on their tablets. Even the students who didn't laugh avoided looking at her, afraid mockery might spread to them. Ariel felt every heartbeat as a bruise. At the back of the classroom, as unnoticed as a shadow, sat Elias Grayson, the billionaire philanthropist who had come that morning to observe the school's new learning initiative he funded. The teachers had welcomed him with professional smiles and whispered excitements. The children had barely recognized him in his simple charcoal sweater and quiet posture. But now, his expression tightened. He saw everything. He saw the small girl gripping her gift so tightly the paper wrinkled further. He saw the children circling her like excited predators smelling weakness. He saw the teacher hesitating, choosing order over courage, not wanting to upset the popular kids or disrupt the event. And he saw the moment when Ariel swallowed hard, lifted her trembling chin, and tried to smile, even though humiliation was burning through her tiny frame. That one gesture, fragile yet brave, stabbed something deep inside him. If this moment breaks your heart, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories. He kept watching, unmoving. Ms. Caldwell, the teacher, clapped her hands. "Okay. Everyone take out your gifts for the exchange. We'll put them up front so the partners can be assigned." The students rushed forward, dropping beautifully decorated bags and boxes on the table. Some compared brand names. Others boasted about what was inside. Only one child stayed seated. Ariel. Ms. Caldwell noticed. "Ariel, sweetheart. Your gift." Ariel froze. She wanted to stand. She really did. But the whispers were growing again. "Oh no, she's really gonna put that thing on the table? She probably found trash at home. Maybe it's used. Or from the dollar store." That last comment cut deeper than the others, because Ariel knew her mother had skipped dinner last night to afford the craft materials they used to make the gift together. Her eyes glistened. She stood slowly, holding her small box with both hands as if it contained her entire worth. Her palms were sweating. Her knees were shaking. Her heart throbbed painfully. And yet, she walked. One step. Another. Her classmates widened the aisle dramatically, as if she carried something contaminated. Elias leaned forward in his chair. Ariel reached the table and placed her little box among the commercial giants, neatly cut ribbons, metallic foil, perfectly folded corners. Her box, wrapped in reused brown paper decorated with hand-drawn stars, looked painfully out of place. A boy named Trevor snorted. "Whose is that? That's embarrassing." A girl chimed in, "My mom said some kids don't belong at gift exchanges." Now I get what she meant. Laughter erupted again. Ariel stepped back quickly, as if distance could shield her. Ms. Caldwell forced an awkward smile. "Let's all be kind." But kindness was already too far gone. The kids didn't stop. Their whispers grew bolder. Phones angled. Smirks sharpened. Ariel's throat tightened. She wrapped her arms around herself, wishing she could disappear into the floor or dissolve into air. Anything but stand here being laughed at. Elias watched her small shoulders curl inward. He knew that posture. He had lived that posture. The world had once laughed at his thrift store clothes and foster home lunches. Money had changed his life, but memories like these never faded. Something inside him cracked. But he didn't move. Not yet. The cruelty escalated. Trevor stepped forward, pointing at the little brown box. I bet it's something stupid. Like a rock. A few students giggled harder. Another girl exaggerated a pout. Well, whoever gets stuck with that is unlucky. Ariel blinked rapidly, trying not to cry. Elias clenched his jaw. Every instinct in him demanded he stand up. Walk forward. Stop this. But he wanted to see how far the adults would allow this to go. He wanted to understand exactly why a room full of children felt so comfortable tearing down one of their own. That's when he saw it. Ariel's little hands twisting together. Her lip trembling despite her best efforts. Her eyes glistening in a way that showed she had fought this battle many times before. She wasn't new to humiliation. She was familiar with it. Too familiar. And that was the part that burned. The room buzzed with taunts. The other gifts sparkled. The contrast was almost cinematic. Ariel tried to shrink away from the table, but the kids circled with curiosity, like spectators waiting for a performance. Ms. Caldwell cleared her throat tightly. Let's continue. But the children weren't done. Not even close. Elias leaned forward again, his fingertips pressed together, eyes locked on the small girl trying her hardest not to fall apart. He didn't know her name yet. He didn't know her story. But he knew cruelty when he saw it. And he never let cruelty stand unchallenged. Not anymore. Not ever. Ariel didn't cry in front of them. She refused to. Not because she wasn't hurting, but because she had learned long ago that tears only made the mockery worse. As the classroom buzzed with excitement over the real gifts, the fancy ones with glitter, ribbons, and gift store tags, she slipped quietly back to her seat. She sat gently, as if even her movement might draw more attention. No one paid her any mind anymore. Not now that the entertainment was over. But Ariel's silence wasn't new. It was a silence shaped by nights on a worn-out couch in their one-bedroom apartment. A silence shaped by watching her mother work 2 jobs and still come home worried about school fees, uniforms, and bills. A silence shaped by being the girl who never brought store-bought cupcakes on birthday days, who never had trending shoes, who always declined invitations she knew her mother couldn't afford. People assumed she was quiet because she liked being that way. But truthfully, she was quiet because life had taught her the world didn't listen to girls like her. The gift she made. The little brown box on the table wasn't just a poor gift. It was a memory. A story. A piece of her mother. 2 nights earlier, Ariel had sat at their tiny kitchen table with her mother, who smelled faintly of fried oil from her evening shift at the diner. They didn't have gift wrap, not the normal shiny kind anyway, so her mother smoothed out leftover brown paper from a grocery bag. Let's decorate it, her mother had said with a spark of creativity that always lit up their small home. She handed Ariel a handful of markers. Ariel drew stars. Her mother drew hearts. They laughed when one of the hearts came out lopsided, and her mother said, "Baby, the best gifts aren't perfect, they're personal." Inside the box, wrapped carefully in tissue paper, was a small handmade snow globe they created using a recycled jar, glitter they found in an old craft bag, and a tiny clay figure of a girl holding a heart, molded entirely by Ariel's hands. It wasn't fancy. It wasn't expensive. But it was made with love. And her mother had kissed her forehead that night and whispered, "Whoever gets this will be lucky." Ariel believed it. She believed it until she walked into class that morning and saw the reality. Shiny gifts, expensive toys, luxury brand items some kids flaunted as trophies. Her little heart had started sinking long before the laughter began. Why this day mattered so much? For most kids, the gift exchange was just a holiday event. For Ariel, it was her chance. Her chance to show she belonged. Her chance to give something others might actually smile at. Her chance to share joy the same way her mother always tried to do, even when life was unfair. She had imagined someone opening her gift and saying, "Wow. You made this?" She imagined a friend forming. She imagined pride blooming in her chest. Instead, she got humiliation. She kept her head lowered now, pretending to organize her pencils even though her hands trembled. She didn't want anyone to see the disappointment draining the color from her face. The adults who didn't notice. A mess. Caldwell paced the room, trying to pretend she didn't see the division. Inside, she was overwhelmed, 27 kids, impatient parents, and a visitor worth billions sitting silently in the back. She told herself the kids were just being kids. She told herself Ariel would be fine. She told herself a small handmade gift wasn't worth starting conflict over. But her avoidance carved itself into Ariel's memory deeper than any insult shouted across the room. Because nothing hurts more than adults who see injustice and choose convenience over courage. The billionaire who watched. Elias Grayson had come here expecting a typical school event. A polished presentation, a few smiles, maybe a photo for the district newsletter. He didn't expect to watch a child's heart crack open. But he recognized the signs. The stiffening shoulders. The lip bitten to keep from quivering. The way she tried to take up less space, shrink into invisibility. He'd done that as a boy in his foster home when other kids mocked his second-hand clothes. He'd done it in school when teachers assumed poverty meant lack of intelligence. He'd done it in life until one mentor told him, "Your value is not based on packaging." The memory haunted him now. But this wasn't about him. It was about the little girl with the trembling hands and the gift nobody wanted. Her private silent hope. Ariel stared at the table again. At her gift buried among the glittering mountain. She wished she could walk up and snatch it back. Hide it. Protect it. Because that snow globe wasn't just a holiday craft, it was a piece of her home. It was every struggle her mother hid behind smiles. It was the two of them sitting under a dim kitchen bulb, choosing love over shame. Ariel bowed her head and whispered silently. "I should have brought nothing. At least nothing can't be laughed at." She swallowed hard. But even in her sadness, there was innocence. She still wondered, still hoped. Maybe someone. Just one person. Would see its value. She didn't know the billionaire at the back had already made up his mind. Not about the gift. About her. About the child who showed more heart in a small handmade snow globe than he had seen in most boardrooms filled with adults. And he intended to prove it. The atmosphere in the classroom shifted long before anyone realized why. At first, it was just a subtle tension, like the air tightening, like the room itself holding its breath. The children were too caught up in their excitement and mockery to notice. But Ms. Caldwell felt it. Her steps slowed. Her smile faltered. Her voice wavered. Because at the back of the room, the billionaire who had remained quiet for most of the morning finally moved. Not a big, loud movement. Just a slight adjustment in his chair. A slow, deliberate sit-up from his previously relaxed posture. But the energy changed instantly. Elias Grayson didn't need to raise his voice. He didn't need to stand. He didn't need to make a gesture. He simply existed differently, and the room reacted. Years of boardrooms falling into silence at the lift of his eyebrow had conditioned him to command presence effortlessly. But right now, he wasn't trying to intimidate anyone. He was trying not to erupt. His gaze was fixed. Not on the children, not on the teachers, but on the small brown box sitting helplessly on the table. The mockery still echoed in his ears, replaying in striking detail. He had seen bullying. He had survived it. He had sworn, long ago, that he would never again sit silently while a child endured what he once did. Especially a child who had nothing but heart and handmade hope. The teacher finally notices him. Ms. Caldwell cleared her throat, suddenly aware that the most influential man the school had ever hosted was watching something she should have stopped 10 minutes ago. She turned toward him with a nervous smile. "Mr. Grayson, is everything okay?" His eyes didn't move away from the gift. He didn't smile back. "Is this how gift exchanges normally go here?" he asked quietly, too quietly, yet the softness was somehow more alarming than anger would have been. Ms. Caldwell swallowed hard. Her palms began to sweat. "Well, kids can get a bit excited," she said, flustered. "It's just harmless teasing." Elias finally looked at her. It wasn't anger in his eyes. It was disappointment. And strangely, sorrow. "Harmless," he repeated. His tone wasn't loud, but something in it made Ms. Caldwell stiffen. Before she could scramble for an answer, another burst of laughter erupted at the table. A boy pretended to kick Ariel's box off the edge, stopping just an inch away. "Oh look! Almost slipped. Good thing no one wants it anyway," he mocked. More laughter followed. Ariel flinched. Elias's hand curled around the armrest of his chair, white-knuckled, controlled rage simmering beneath the surface. He rose. Not fast. Not abruptly. But with the slow, deliberate precision of a man who had spent a lifetime learning how to steady himself during emotional storms. The room fell quiet, first in curiosity, then in unease. Because even the children could sense something was about to shift. His first step forward. Elias stepped closer. One careful stride. Then another. Each footstep softened by the classroom carpet but heavy in meaning. He didn't speak. He didn't announce himself. He didn't ask permission. He simply walked toward the table where the gifts sat. Toward the little brown box that everyone else avoided. Toward the very object that had made Ariel shrink to the size of her own shame. Ariel caught sight of him moving. Her heart jumped for a moment. Was he coming to see her? Was he coming to help? Or would he be disappointed too? She had no idea who he was, just a tall man with gentle eyes and quiet steps. But something about him felt safe. Or at least, safer than the rest of the room. Her breath caught as he stopped right in front of her gift. The moment before the intervention. Elias didn't touch the box. He didn't pick it up. He simply stood before it, staring at it the way someone might look at a fragile artifact, something precious, misunderstood, mistreated. The children exchanged uncertain glances. Why was he looking at that gift? Why was he giving attention to the worst one? Trevor, the ringleader, nervously laughed. Sir. That one's like, nothing. The real gifts are. Elias lifted a hand slightly, one subtle gesture. Trevor froze mid-sentence. The billionaire spoke calmly, but with unmistakable weight. I'd like to see this one first. A ripple of confusion moved through the kids. Ms. Caldwell blinked. The handmade one. The handmade one, he confirmed, eyes still on the box. His jaw tightened again, though his voice remained measured. There's something special about gifts made with heart. A hush spread, because for the first time all morning, someone had chosen Ariel's gift. Publicly. Openly. And with unmistakable respect. And he wasn't done. Not even close. Because when Elias Grayson bent down, laying one hand gently beside the small brown box, the entire room realized something. The billionaire wasn't observing anymore. He was intervening. For the first time since the gift exchange began, the classroom noise faded into something distant, soft, blurry, almost unreal to little Ariel. Because the tall man standing over her handmade gift was different. He didn't look amused like the kids. He didn't look embarrassed like the teacher. He didn't look impatient like the aide near the door. He looked concerned. Deeply. Quietly. Piercingly. And even though Ariel had no idea who he was, she felt something shift inside her, a faint but powerful spark of hope. Maybe he was here to help. Maybe someone finally noticed her. Maybe someone finally cared. She held her breath as the man crouched down slightly, his eyes still fixed on the brown paper-wrapped box as if it were something worth admiring. No adult had looked at anything she made like that since her mother last hugged her and said, "You have magic in your hands, baby." The kids had gone silent now. The teacher was rigid. The atmosphere felt like a string pulled too tight. And in the middle of that tension, for just a moment, Ariel let herself believe. This man is here for me. Her small attempt at bravery. Ariel gathered a tiny bit of courage, just enough to whisper, barely audible. "That one's mine." Her voice cracked, but she said it. Elias turned his head slightly, meeting her eyes for the first time. They were wide. Brown. Glassy with unshed tears. He softened instantly. But before he could speak, Ariel rushed out the explanation she feared she needed to give. I know it's not like the others," she stammered, twisting her fingers nervously under the table. "I didn't have. I mean, my mom and I made it ourselves. I tried really hard." Her cheeks flushed in embarrassment as she lowered her gaze. "I'm sorry if it's not good." Elias's heart clenched. Not good. Her gift was the only one in the room made with love instead of money. But before he could tell her that, Trevor, still trying to regain his sense of dominance, snorted from across the table. "It's fine, I guess, if you like garbage crafts." A few kids giggled again, sensing the distraction. Ariel flinched. And the billionaire inhaled slowly through his nose, a restrained storm building behind his calm demeanor. Her hope builds. Then hesitates. Ariel looked back up at him, her eyes shimmering with fear and fragile expectation. She didn't know he was Elias Grayson. She didn't know he owned half the technology the classroom used. She didn't know the school board practically worshipped him. She only saw a quiet man with kind eyes who stepped between her and cruelty. So when he kneeled beside the table, lowering himself to her level, she thought, "Maybe he's here to protect me." Her small shoulders relaxed a little. Her fingers stopped trembling. Her breathing steadied. For the first time today, she felt seen. But then, he didn't speak up. He didn't scold the bullies. He didn't tell them to stop. He stayed quiet, observing. Waiting. And Ariel's fragile hope wavered again. Why wasn't he saying anything? Why wasn't he helping? Was he disappointed too? She bit her lip, anxiety rising in her chest like floodwater. She reaches for him without words. Without realizing it, Ariel scooted just a little closer, half an inch, maybe. Not enough for the class to notice, but enough that her tiny body leaned subtly in his direction. A silent plea. A silent question. A silent, trembling "help me." Elias saw it. He saw the instinct children only had when they sensed a protector. He saw the way she inched toward safety, believing instinctively that he was it. It almost broke him. But he didn't intervene yet. Not because he doubted her. Not because he was unsure. He waited because he wanted to expose the cruelty fully, so that when he finally acted, his words would be undeniable and irreversible. But Ariel couldn't understand that. All she saw was a grown-up who looked strong enough to defend her. Yet still staying silent. Her face fell again, hope flickering uncertainly. One more blow before the turning point. As if sensing the moment, another student, a girl named Harper, leaned forward. "So, what even is inside?" she asked mockingly. "Something from the trash. Maybe that's why you wrapped it in paper bags." Ariel froze, her breath catching in her throat. The teacher stepped forward, then stopped again, hesitating, unsure how to handle it now that the billionaire was involved. And for the billionth time, Ariel felt the familiar sting. No one was going to save her. Not the teacher. Not her classmates. Not this kind-eyed stranger. She lowered her head. "It's okay," she whispered shakily. "You don't have to pretend to like it." Elias's chest tightened. Pretend? He wasn't pretending at all. He was preparing. But the child didn't know that. She thought she had misread him. She thought she had been foolish to hope. She thought he was just another adult who would watch quietly while she was torn apart. Her small voice broke as she whispered. I know it's not special." Elias exhaled sharply. It was soft. Controlled. But in that breath lay the spark that would ignite everything that happened next. Because the girl thought he wasn't her protector. But she was wrong. He was about to become something far more powerful. And the moment of cruelty that pushed him into action was seconds away. Ariel sat frozen in her seat, her hands curled into tight fists in her lap. The classroom felt colder now, sharper, as if every whisper and giggle was a needle aimed straight at her chest. Elias stayed crouched near the gift table, still studying her little brown box with a kind of reverence no one else in the room understood. His silence was heavy, intentional, and moments away from shattering. But before he could move, the cruelty escalated. Jessica, one of the loudest girls in the class, strutted forward with crossed arms and a smirk. "Why don't we just open it now?" she suggested, her voice dripping with condescension. "That way we can get it over with. No one wants it anyway." A few kids snickered. Trevor's eyes lit up. He lived for attention, and the class was giving it to him. "Yeah," he chimed in, puffing his chest. "Let's open the poor people's present first." Ms. Caldwell turned sharply. "Trevor, that's enough." But he ignored her completely. He reached toward the little brown box. Ariel's breath stopped. Her heart leapt painfully against her ribs. "No, wait, please," she whispered, her voice barely audible. But Trevor had already grabbed the box with one hand, lifting it off the table like a piece of trash he didn't want touching him. Ariel jolted up from her chair. Her voice cracked. "Please don't." Trevor dangled the box by a corner, shaking it roughly. "What even is this? It sounds cheap. Probably broke already." Her chest tightened so hard she could barely breathe. "It's not cheap," she said shakily. "Please, put it down." No one moved to help her. Not the kids. Not the teacher. Only one man's eyes darkened dangerously. From the back of the gift table, Elias slowly rose, every inch of him controlled, sharp, bracing. But Trevor didn't see him. All he saw was his audience. He smirked, lifting the box higher. "Let's guess what's inside." A rock. Old socks. Maybe. Crack. The sound wasn't the gift breaking. It was the sound of the last thread of Ariel's spirit snapping. She darted forward, reaching for the box, desperation pouring from her like a scream she couldn't voice. "Stop," she cried. "You're hurting it." The room fell quiet, not out of kindness, but out of shock at her raised voice. Ariel never raised her voice. Trevor rolled his eyes. "Relax. It's junk." And then, he shook the box again. Harder this time. The room erupted in laughter. Ariel covered her mouth, her whole body trembling. Ms. Caldwell stepped forward. "Trevor, give that back right now. But Trevor stepped away from her, still smirking, still putting on a show. Come on, it's just a dumb little. Then it happened. His foot lifted. His leg swung. And he pretended to kick the box like a football. It didn't fly across the room, but the gesture alone was enough. Enough to break the last of Ariel's hope. Enough to freeze the teacher in horror. Enough to ignite something volcanic inside the billionaire watching. Ariel screamed. Not loud. Not violent. But small and shattered. No. Please don't hurt it. Trevor blinked, surprised she cared this much. It's not even a real gift. That was it. That was the line. Elias stepped forward. He didn't shout. He didn't stomp. He didn't even rush. He simply appeared beside Trevor, faster than the boy expected, his presence towering, calm, and deadly precise. Put the gift down. His voice was low, even, but so sharp it sliced through the room. Trevor jumped, startled. I was just joking. Elias's expression didn't change. He extended his hand. Trevor swallowed, suddenly small. He placed the gift box into Elias's palm, his fingers trembling. The billionaire received it gently, holding it with a care none of the kids had shown. The room went completely silent. No more whispers. No more giggles. Every child froze, sensing something monumental was unfolding. Elias knelt down, not in anger, but in full respect, and examined the damaged corners of the gift Ariel had crafted with love. Then he looked up. Not at Trevor. Not at the laughing kids. At Ariel. Her face was crumpled, tears fighting to escape. She looked like a child who was bracing to be scolded for caring too much. But instead, Elias said softly, "Is this yours?" She nodded. Her throat was tight. Her hands clasped together in front of her. "I made it with my mom," she whispered. "We worked really hard on it." He nodded slowly, once, with reverence. Then his voice deepened, carrying a quiet thunder. "It's the most valuable gift on this table." A gasp rippled through the room. Trevor's face drained of color. Jessica's smirk collapsed. Several kids bowed their heads. Even Ms. Caldwell froze in shock. Elias rose to his feet slowly, the box still cradled carefully in his hands. He turned to face the class, towering, calm, controlled, but radiating a presence that made every child straighten in their seat. "Tell me," he said, his voice quiet but heavy as iron, "when did a handmade gift become something to mock?" No one spoke. Not a whisper. Not a giggle. Not a breath out of place. Ariel watched him with wide, trembling eyes. Because now she knew. He wasn't just someone who noticed her. He wasn't just kind. He was about to fight for her. And the world that had tormented her all morning was about to face the storm they created. For a long, heavy moment, the classroom sat suspended in total silence. The type of silence that follows a lightning strike. The type of silence that signals a storm is about to break. Elias Grayson stood tall at the front of the room, the handmade gift resting in his palm as if it were something fragile, priceless, irreplaceable. And when he finally spoke again, his voice carried a depth that made even the walls seem to listen. "I asked a question," he said quietly. "When did a handmade gift become something to mock?" No one answered. Not because they didn't have an answer, but because the truth was too ugly to speak aloud. Trevor lowered his gaze. Jessica swallowed hard. Harper fidgeted with her bracelet. Suddenly, every child in the room looked much smaller than they had 5 minutes ago. Elias shifted his attention slowly, his tone sharpening just a fraction. "How many of you," he continued, "thought it was funny to hurt someone today?" Still silence. Ariel watched him from her desk, eyes wide, her chest tightening with emotions she didn't have names for. Relief. Fear. Gratitude. Confusion. She had never seen an adult command a room like this. Not with anger, not with shouting, but with calm authority that felt like truth itself. Elias placed the box gently on the table, smoothing the paper with his thumb. As if apologizing to it. As if restoring its dignity. Then he turned to the children, folding his hands behind his back, a gesture that felt both patient and terrifying. "Do you know why this gift matters?" he asked. Trevor muttered under his breath, "Because she's poor." Elias cut him off. Not with a shout, not with a reprimand, but with a single, piercing look. Trevor's mouth snapped shut like someone had pressed a mute button. "No," Elias said. "It matters because effort matters. Heart matters. Kindness matters." He looked around the room slowly, purposefully. "And because none of you know what people carry with them. None of you know what sacrifices are made. None of you know what it takes for someone to show up with love when life hasn't always given it back." A few kids shifted uncomfortably. Harper raised her hand timidly. We were just joking." Elias's eyes softened, but his voice didn't lose any weight. "A joke," he said, "is only a joke when everyone is laughing." He let that settle like dust. And no one in this room seems to care whether she was laughing. Ariel pressed her lips together, her throat tightening. Someone was standing up for her. Someone saw her. No. Someone valued her. Elias stepped closer to the center of the room. Every child straightened instinctively. "I grew up with nothing," he said, his voice steady. "I know what it's like to have the least expensive clothes. The plainest lunch. The smallest gifts." Whispers rippled through the kids. "He grew up poor. Him. But he's a billionaire." Ariel blinked, stunned. Elias continued. "And I also know what it's like to be mocked for things I couldn't change. To be made to feel small. To be made fun of because my gifts didn't come from stores." His eyes softened, but his voice hardened. "But do you know what I learned?" No one breathed. "That the greatest cruelty is children being taught to measure a person's worth by their belongings." The words hit like stones dropped into water. Trevor's eyes welled. He quickly blinked it away. Jessica chewed her lip, shaking slightly. Even the students who hadn't laughed felt the sting of guilt. Ms. Caldwell opened her mouth, perhaps to redirect the tension, but Elias lifted a finger gently. Not rudely, but decisively, silencing her. He wasn't finished. He turned back to Ariel. She froze. His tone softened, warm and full of sincerity. "You made something beautiful," he told her. "Something with time, care, and meaning. That makes your gift extraordinary." Ariel's breath hitched. The room blurred for a moment as tears gathered in her eyes, threatening to spill. No one had ever described anything she made as extraordinary. Then Elias stood tall once more, facing the class with the force of someone who had rebuilt his life from the fragments of childhood wounds. "We will not," he said firmly, "allow cruelty to be entertainment in this classroom." A ripple of electricity moved through the students. Elias turned to the teacher. "With respect," he said calmly, "you should have stepped in long before this." Ms. Caldwell flushed, embarrassed. "You're right. I should have." "And now," Elias said, stepping back toward the gift table, "we're going to do this properly." He placed a hand over Ariel's gift, immediately elevating it above all the others. "This is the first gift we will open today." The class gasped. Ariel's hand flew to her mouth, her small body trembling with disbelief. Elias looked around the room once more. "And every one of you," he said, "is going to watch with the respect this young girl deserves." The final word, deserves, hit like a gavel striking wood. And for the first time all morning, Ariel felt like she wasn't alone. She felt seen. She felt valued. She felt protected. The billionaire who had once remained silent had finally snapped into protector mode. And nothing in that room was ever going to be the same after this. The moment Elias announced that Ariel's gift would be opened first, the classroom fractured into two kinds of silence. The first was stunned silence. The kind that follows shock, when disbelief clings to the air like static. The second was fearful silence, the kind that comes when children realize the adult in the room is not just upset, but deeply disappointed. Elias stood with the gift in both hands, holding it with the same careful posture one might use for something delicate or sacred. His presence filled the room, not by volume, but by gravity. Even the fluorescent lights seemed to flicker softer around him. Ariel sat frozen, her fingers pressed to her lips, her wide brown eyes shimmering with confusion, fear, and hope all at once. She didn't fully understand what was happening, only that someone powerful was standing between her and the cruelty she'd endured. Trevor shifted nervously, rubbing the back of his neck. He'd never seen an adult react this intensely, not even when he'd thrown a football through the cafeteria window last year. Jessica whispered, "Why is he making such a big deal?" Harper elbowed her sharply. "Shut up. He heard you earlier." Elias wasn't looking at them yet. He was looking at the gift. And then, very slowly, he began to unwrap it. The room watches the unwrapping. He didn't tear the paper the way kids usually do. He didn't rush. He didn't treat it like trash. Instead, he smoothed out each fold, each piece of tape, as if preserving every detail mattered. He unfolded the brown paper like it was tissue, not scrap. Every student leaned in. Even Ms. Caldwell stepped closer, her face tense, guilt spreading across her features as the harsh reality of her inaction sank deeper and deeper. Ariel's breath shook in her chest. She whispered, "Please don't let it be broken." Elias heard her. His heart twisted. He opened the box and peered inside. A collective hush fell over the class. Inside the box was a small homemade snow globe. Crafted from a recycled glass jar, glitter swirling in clear syrup, and a tiny clay girl standing in the center holding a heart. The clay figure was imperfect. A little crooked. A little uneven. But the meaning behind it was unmistakable. Elias blinked, and something inside him shifted. He saw not a child's craft. He saw effort. He saw love. He saw two sets of hands working late in a small kitchen. He saw a mother trying to give her daughter a chance to shine. He saw himself. He gently lifted the snow globe from the tissue-lined box and held it up to the light. The glitter shimmered. The clay girl looked brave. The heart glowed. Gasps drifted around the room. Trevor whispered, awestruck, "She made that?" No one answered. Because yes, she did. And they all had laughed at it. The confrontation begins. Elias turned slowly to face the class. "When did we decide," he began softly, "that something made with real effort is worth less than something bought in a store?" The kids stared at their shoes. He scanned the class, his eyes neither angry nor soft, they held something heavier. Truth. When did we start measuring each other's value by price tags? Jessica swallowed hard. I didn't mean. Yes, you did, Elias said calmly. Cruelty doesn't need to be loud to be real. You all thought it was funny. You thought mocking her gift made you superior. Trevor opened his mouth, but Elias didn't even look at him. Don't defend it, he said gently but firmly. What you did wasn't teasing. It was humiliation. Ariel shifted in her seat, trembling. Elias faced her next. Her eyes widened. Ariel, he said, you made something beautiful. Her breath wavered. And no one ever thinks that. That's because they don't understand value, he said. But I do. Her lips parted in shock. He turns back to the class. Elias placed the snow globe down carefully and stepped toward the center of the room. Every student straightened. Do you know why this gift matters more than anything else on that table? He asked. No one dared speak. He pointed to the expensive boxes, glossy, new, branded. Those gifts required money. He pointed to Ariel's. This required heart. Silence again. Ariel used time and creativity. She used her hands. She used her imagination. She gave something personal. That is not poor. That is generous. Ariel's chin trembled. Trevor muttered, we didn't know. You didn't ask, Elias corrected sharply. That's the problem with cruelty. It doesn't stop to understand, only to wound. Jessica's eyes filled with tears. We're sorry. Words are easy, Elias replied. Change is harder. He directs his attention to the teacher. Then he turned to Ms. Caldwell. She froze. Ms. Caldwell, he said in a calm but firm tone, part of your responsibility is to protect the children in your care, not just academically, but emotionally. She swallowed. I know. I should have stopped it sooner. Not sooner, he corrected gently. Immediately. Her eyes dropped to the floor. This wasn't teasing, he went on. This was targeted humiliation. And your silence allowed it to grow. She nodded, tears brimming. You're right. I failed her. Ariel flinched at those words, failed her. But the teacher stepped closer, voice trembling. I won't let it happen again. Elias nodded once, accepting her accountability but refusing to lighten the weight of the moment. He returns to the gift, and raises it. Elias lifted the snow globe again and turned back to the class. This, he said, raising it gently, is the first gift that deserves to be opened. Not because I say so, but because it carries real meaning. He stepped closer to Ariel's desk. Her breath froze. Her hands trembled. Her heart pounded. I would be honored, he said, if you would tell us about how you made it. Ariel's eyes shot up. Me? Yes, he replied warmly. You. The kids shifted, surprised. What could she possibly say? Ariel swallowed hard and stood slowly, barely taller than the desk, her small hands clasped tightly together. Her voice shook as she began. My mom. She works a lot. We didn't have money for a store gift. She paused, blinking through tears. So we made this. We used a jar and glitter and I made the little girl out of clay. Elias smiled gently. It's beautiful. Trevor, once the loudest voice in the room, whispered, it really is. The class nodded slowly, shame softening into humility. Ariel's chest loosened. Her shoulders lifted slightly. For the first time today, she stood tall. The billionaire's message. Elias addressed the class one last time. If you ever have the choice between a gift made with money and a gift made with effort, he said, choose the one made with effort. Money fades. Toys break. But something made with heart stays with you forever. He placed the snow globe gently back into Ariel's hands. Every child watched. Every child understood. And somewhere in the back of the room, the atmosphere shifted, not with fear this time, but awakening. Because this wasn't just a confrontation. It was a lesson. A turning point. A moment every child in that room would carry into adulthood. And Ariel. She was no longer the invisible girl with the poor gift. She was the girl whose heart had been defended. The girl who stood in the light. The girl someone powerful had chosen to protect. And the story was only just beginning. The classroom remained strangely still after the confrontation. Not tense. Not afraid. Just, quiet. Ariel held the snow globe carefully against her chest, her small fingers wrapped around the jar as if it were the only fragile piece of her heart she'd managed to protect. Her breaths were shallow. Her eyes were still glassy. But something inside her had shifted, just slightly, just enough to breathe again. Elias watched her for a moment. Not the class. Not the teacher. Just her. Her tiny shoulders. Her trembling lip. The way she kept brushing a thumb across the glass globe, like reassuring herself it was still there and still intact. She looked like a child who had been bracing for harm her whole life and didn't quite know what to do with kindness when it arrived. Slowly, he approached her desk. The children whispered as he walked past, but this time their murmurs held no cruelty, only curiosity and the lingering sting of regret. Elias knelt beside Ariel's desk, lowering himself so that their eyes were level. She startled slightly, as if unaccustomed to adults coming close without scolding or shushing her. "May I sit here?" he asked gently. She nodded quickly, almost shyly. He pulled a small chair beside her, sitting with the quiet grace of someone who didn't want to overwhelm her. For a moment, he didn't speak at all. He simply allowed her breathing to settle, allowed her trembling to ease. Finally, he said softly, "You know, when I was your age, I made gifts too." Ariel blinked up at him. "You did?" "Oh yes," he chuckled lightly. "Lots of them. My foster home never had money for birthday gifts or Christmas gifts, so I used whatever I could find. Paper scraps, old jars, buttons. Sometimes I made things no one even understood." She actually smiled a little. Just a flicker. Just enough to soften her face. "What did you make?" she asked timidly. "Well," he leaned back, thinking, "once I glued macaroni onto a cereal box lid and called it a picture frame." Ariel giggled. It was tiny, timid, and still coated in sadness, but it was real. "And another time," he continued, "I made a snow globe out of a jar just like yours." Her eyes widened. "You did?" "Absolutely." He pointed to the little clay girl inside hers. "I didn't have clay, though. So I used gum and covered it in glitter." She gasped. "That must have been messy." "Oh, it was." He laughed softly. "The glitter stuck to my fingers for a week." A small, genuine smile warmed Ariel's face. The room felt lighter. The children watched from afar, witnessing something they didn't understand but somehow respected. Elias leaned a bit closer, his voice gentle. "When I gave my snow globe away, the person who received it said it was weird." Ariel's smile faded. "But do you know what I realized many years later?" he asked. She shook her head. "That person didn't understand me." He tapped the snow globe lightly. "And sometimes people laugh at what they don't understand." Ariel swallowed hard. And sometimes people can be mean for no reason," she whispered. "Yes." His expression softened painfully. "Sometimes people are cruel because they've never been taught how to be kind." She glanced around at her classmates, kids who suddenly looked smaller, quieter, not as invincible as they had earlier. Elias followed her gaze and nodded subtly. "Some of your classmates didn't think about how their words would hurt you," he said. "But that doesn't mean your gift, or you, deserve any less respect." Her eyes glistened again. She looked down at the snow globe. Quiet for a long moment. Then asked, "Do you really think it's beautiful?" Elias didn't hesitate. "I think it's one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen." Her breath caught, sharp, soft, heartbreaking. "No one ever says that about things I make," she whispered. "They say they look too simple. Or cheap." "Simple doesn't mean cheap," he said. "And handmade doesn't mean less. It means more." She blinked up at him. "Because you made it with your heart." Her throat tightened. I tried so hard, she admitted quietly. I wanted someone to like it. Elias smiled, but his eyes glistened with something deep. Anger for the world she lived in, compassion for the child before him, longing for the version of himself who once needed someone to say these words. I don't like it, he said softly. Ariel's face fell. He leaned forward. I love it. Her lips parted. A tear slipped down her cheek, slow, silent, heavy. Elias reached for a tissue from her desk and handed it to her gently. You deserve to be treated with kindness, Ariel, he said. Every day. Not just today. She wiped her cheeks. Thank you, she whispered. For helping me. He shook his head slowly. No, he said. Thank you for reminding me what real giving looks like. Ariel's fingers curled protectively around her snow globe. And in that quiet moment, surrounded by a classroom full of humble children and a teacher learning painful lessons of her own, Ariel felt something she hadn't felt all day. Something warm, something steady, something new. She felt safe. The door to the classroom swung open with a soft but hurried push, drawing every pair of eyes toward it. A woman stepped inside, thin, tired, wearing a faded uniform shirt from the diner down the street. Her hair was pulled back hastily, and worry clung to her like a second skin. Ariel's mother. Her breath was shallow from rushing, her purse strap slipping off her shoulder as she took in the scene. The children sitting unusually quiet. The teacher's tense posture. The billionaire standing near her daughter. And Ariel herself clutching the snow globe to her chest. Ariel, her mother gasped, stepping forward. Baby, are you okay? I got a call that there was an incident. Ariel straightened in her seat, panic flashing briefly across her face. She didn't want her mother to feel embarrassed. She didn't want her mother to hurt. I'm okay, Mama, she whispered, though her voice trembled. Her mother's eyes narrowed with protective instinct. No, you're not, she murmured, reading her daughter the way only a mother could. Ms. Caldwell rushed forward. Mrs. Johnson, thank you for coming so quickly. I'm very sorry, But before she could finish, another voice cut through the tension. A calm, steady, respectful voice. Mrs. Johnson. Elias stepped forward, offering his hand gently. She hesitated, glancing at his outstretched hand before accepting it. Yes, and you are. I'm Elias Grayson. Her heart stopped mid-beat. The Elias Grayson she'd seen on magazine covers at the grocery store. The philanthropist she'd heard about in the news. She blinked, stunned. You're him. Yes, he said with a gentle nod, but today, I'm just the man who saw your daughter show more strength and grace than most adults I know. Ariel's mother's eyes glistened immediately. She looked down at her daughter, small, shaken, holding onto the handmade snow globe like it was life itself. What happened? She asked, her voice cracking. Did someone hurt her? A few children lowered their heads. Ms. Caldwell opened her mouth to explain, but Elias lifted a hand, politely, not dismissively. Mrs. Johnson, he said, your daughter was mocked today. Cruelly. Repeatedly. For giving a gift that she put time, effort, and heart into. Her face fell. Oh, baby, she knelt beside Ariel, cupping her cheek. I'm so sorry. Ariel shook her head quickly. Mama, it's not your fault. I liked the gift. I thought someone else might like it too. Her mother's eyes filled with tears, heavy, trembling tears that carried years of struggle, guilt, and quiet sacrifice. I'm proud of you, she whispered. So proud. Elias stepped closer, lowering his voice so it felt like a private space despite the watching eyes. You should be, he said. Your daughter showed courage today. She stood in front of cruelty and didn't break. Ariel's mother wiped her eyes. Thank you for stepping in. I can't imagine how bad it would have gotten if you weren't here. Elias shook his head firmly. Don't thank me. Any adult in this room should have done it. I simply refuse to let her stand alone. Ms. Caldwell's face flushed with shame. Ariel's mother looked at the gift still in her daughter's hands. You kept it safe, she whispered. Ariel nodded. Mr. Elias did. Her mother turned to him. Most people would have ignored something like this. Most people, he said, forget what it feels like to be small. That single sentence made Ariel's mother inhale sharply, as if it hit a place she didn't know was still tender. She stood, straightening her posture, a woman who had fought too many battles alone, suddenly realizing she wasn't alone today. My daughter deserves kindness, she said quietly, her voice stronger now. She deserves the same respect as every other child. She does, Elias agreed. The room seemed to absorb the weight of those words. A few children nodded silently. Trevor wiped his face with his sleeve. Jessica pressed her lips together, guilt settling heavier. Ariel's mother looked around the classroom, the decorations, the other gifts, the children watching with shame and curiosity, and then down at her daughter again. Come here, baby, she whispered. Ariel stood and walked into her mother's arms, the snow globe pressed between them. Her mother hugged her so tightly the little girl's knees nearly buckled. You didn't do anything wrong, her mother whispered in her ear. You hear me? Not one thing. Ariel nodded against her shoulder. Elias looked away briefly, giving them privacy, then turned his attention back to the children. This moment, he said quietly to the class, is what happens when cruelty meets truth. And as Ariel's mother gently brushed her daughter's hair and whispered reassurances, Ariel felt something she hadn't felt when she walked into school that morning. She felt wanted. She felt defended. She felt loved. And for the first time all day, she felt whole again. If the morning had been a storm, the days that followed unfolded like the slow return of sunlight, warm at first, then stronger, then finally bright enough to chase away shadows that had lingered far too long. Word of what happened in Ms. Caldwell's classroom traveled across the school faster than wildfire. Children talked. Parents whispered. Teachers exchanged uneasy glances. And the principal, after one very unexpected meeting with Elias Grayson, walked the halls with renewed vigilance and a stiff spine. But while the adults scrambled to repair the cracks they had allowed, something far more powerful was happening at the center of it all. Ariel Johnson, the small girl who once entered school each day hoping not to be noticed, began to step into a world where compassion, courage, and belonging were no longer distant dreams, but growing realities. And this transformation did not happen all at once. It happened moment by moment, gesture by gesture, heart by heart. The morning after the incident, Ariel walked into class holding her mother's hand. She braced herself for more stares, more whispers, more laughter tucked behind palms. But instead, silence met her. Then something else. Trevor stood up from his desk. His shoulders were slumped. His eyes were red. He held something wrapped in tissue paper. Ariel, he said softly, I need to say. I'm sorry. Ariel blinked, stunned. Trevor had never apologized to anyone, not even when teachers forced him to. He stepped closer and placed a small object on her desk. I made this last night, he said awkwardly. It's not good. It's probably weird. But I wanted you to know I understand how hard it is to make something. Ariel unwrapped it carefully. Inside was a clay star, uneven, lopsided, but made with trembling sincerity. A soft gasp ran through the class. Trevor stared at the floor. You don't have to like it. Ariel smiled gently. I do. Jessica approached next. I'm sorry for laughing, she whispered. I wanted to fit in. Harper came after her, tears already in her eyes. I shouldn't have said anything about your gift. I was jealous you could make something like that. One by one, kids approached. Some apologized with words. Some with small objects. Some with simply the courage to say they'd been wrong. Ariel accepted each apology with quiet grace, and something inside her, something bruised but resilient, began to heal. 2 days later, the principal called an emergency assembly in the auditorium. Hundreds of students filled the seats, wondering why the billionaire donor was standing on the stage beside the principal, holding a small jar full of glitter. The lights dimmed. The room hushed. The principal introduced Elias, who stepped forward with his familiar quiet strength. Bullying, he said, doesn't start with fists. It starts with laughter. He held up Ariel's snow globe. And sometimes the bravest thing a child can do is show their heart to the world. He didn't mention names. He didn't shame anyone. He simply told the truth. We are beginning a new initiative, the Heart Project. Every student will create something handmade to give away. No store-bought items. No price tags. Just creativity, kindness, and effort. A wave of murmurs swept through the auditorium. Elias continued. We will display every handmade creation around the halls. Every piece will be celebrated. And every student will learn what it means to value effort over expense. The announcement changed the energy of the school overnight. Posters went up. Teachers prepared stations. Parents received emails about the new initiative. And for the first time in a long time, students buzzed about something meaningful. The following week, Elias returned with boxes of supplies he'd personally purchased: clay, markers, glitter, jars, buttons, fabric scraps, glue sticks, wooden shapes, ribbons, beads. The moment he opened the boxes, the kids gasped. Whoa! This is so cool! I've never used clay before. Ariel sat near the center of the room, unsure where she belonged. Elias noticed instantly. Would you help me show the others how you made your snow globe? He asked with a soft smile. Her cheeks flushed. And me? Yes, he said. You're the expert. The word expert made something bloom in her chest. She nodded shyly. The workshop began, and suddenly Ariel was surrounded by classmates asking questions, listening closely, copying her techniques. How did you make the figure stand inside the jar? How did you keep the glitter from clumping? What kind of clay did you use? Ariel answered each one quietly, her voice trembling at first, then steadying, then growing in confidence. Trevor even requested help with shaping his clay figure. She guided him gently. Elias stood off to the side, watching with a proud, soft expression, seeing a child blossom under the warmth of validation she should have always received. 2 weeks later, the hallway walls gleamed with handmade creations from every student. Paper sculptures. Clay animals. Painted jars. Hand-stitched felt creatures. Drawings. Poems. Origami. Every piece was unique. Every piece was celebrated. Ariel's snow globe sat in the center of the main display case, elevated, spotlighted, protected by glass. Children stopped to stare at it every morning. One whispered, "It really is the best one." Another said, "I want mine to look like that." And each time Ariel passed the display, her heart swelled. Because now the school valued the very thing that once made her feel small. Ms. Caldwell transformed too. She created a weekly, kindness circle, where students shared something positive someone else had done. She added a creative corner, filled with crafting materials where kids could design things during free time. She posted a sign on the bulletin board. Effort is valuable. Effort is seen. Effort is respected. One morning, she pulled Ariel aside. "I need you to know something," she said quietly. "Your courage helped me fix parts of this classroom I didn't realize were broken." Thank you for teaching me, Ariel. No teacher had ever thanked her before. It meant more than words could express. The principal implemented new measures. Mandatory anti-bullying training for staff. Clear intervention requirements for teachers. Peer support teams for students. Anonymous kindness submissions posted weekly. Handmade gift exchanges replacing store-bought traditions. The culture of the school began to change. Not because someone demanded it, but because someone precious had been hurt, and the school realized it couldn't continue ignoring vulnerability. One afternoon, as the kids worked on their heart project pieces, Trevor quietly approached Ariel. "Can I sit with you?" he asked. She hesitated, just a moment, before nodding. He sat down, opened his box of clay, and began shaping something awkwardly. "I thought, maybe we could make things together," he whispered. "Because you're really good at it. And I want to be better." Ariel smiled softly. "That would be nice." Their unlikely friendship startled some classmates at first, but soon others joined them, drawn to Ariel's gentle guidance and Trevor's newfound humility. It became the craft table, where laughter replaced cruelty, creativity replaced judgment, and a quiet girl became the heart of her classroom. One morning, during the Heart Project showcase, a parent admired Ariel's snow globe and said aloud, "Whoever made this has real talent." Ariel stepped forward, not shyly, not shrinking. "I made it," she said proudly. The parent blinked. "You did? It's incredible." Ariel's classmates nodded eagerly. "She's the best at making things. She helped all of us. She's really creative." A warmth filled her chest, a feeling she'd never felt at school before. Belonging. On the final day of the Heart Project, Elias returned, not with cameras, not with press, but alone. He walked the halls, admiring every handmade piece. When he reached Ariel, she was helping a younger girl glue beads onto a frame. He smiled. "You've had a busy few weeks." She nodded proudly. "A lot of kids needed help." "Good," he said. "You have a gift. Not just in crafting, but in giving." Ariel looked down shyly. "Mama says I have a big heart." "You do," he replied. "And hearts like yours make the world better." Her eyes glowed. Then Elias knelt again, lowering his voice. "You've changed your school, Ariel." Her breath caught. "You." Her small voice trembled. "Me?" "Yes," he said, smiling softly. "Your courage started something bigger than all of us." Ariel held the snow globe gently, the glitter swirling like tiny sparks of hope. That night at home, Ariel showed her mother the Heart Project display photos, the cards from classmates, and Trevor's clay star. Her mother sat beside her on the couch, tears slipping silently down her cheeks. "You're special," she whispered. "I always knew it. But now the world sees it too." Ariel hugged her tightly. "Thank you for making the gift with me," she whispered. "It changed everything." Her mother kissed her forehead. "No, baby," she said. "You changed everything." Ariel laughing with classmates who once ignored her. Ms. Caldwell writing, "Kindness counts," on the board. Trevor crafting another clay star with intense concentration. Kids pointing excitedly at their handmade gifts in the hallway display. Parents admiring creativity instead of brand names. Elias standing quietly in the hallway, watching it all unfold with a soft, reflective expression. Ariel's life hadn't magically become perfect. But it had become brighter. Safer. Warmer. A world that once humiliated her now uplifted her. A school that once overlooked her now celebrated her. A child who once hid her heart now shared it boldly. And the billionaire who once sat silently in the back of a classroom had become a quiet guardian of her spirit. The Heart Project showcase had ended, but Elias stayed behind after most families and students drifted out of the building. The halls were quieter now, soft echoes, faint laughter in the distance, the hum of custodians beginning their evening rounds. Ariel lingered near the display case, her fingertips pressed gently against the glass. She was staring at the snow globe. The one she had made with her mother, that now stood in the center of the showcase like a tiny beacon of courage. Elias approached quietly. "You know," he said softly, "every time I look at that snow globe, I see bravery." Ariel turned, smiling shyly. "Mama says bravery is doing something even when you're scared." "She's right," he said. "And you did exactly that." Her eyes sparkled, but her hands fidgeted with the hem of her dress. "It still feels unreal. Like all this happened to someone else." "It happened to you," he said gently, "because you deserved it." Ariel looked down at her shoes, bashful. After a long, thoughtful pause, Elias reached into the pocket of his coat. "I have something for you," he said. Her head snapped up. "For me?" He nodded and knelt again, bringing himself eye level with her, something he had done every time he wanted her to feel seen, not spoken down to. From his pocket, he pulled out a small velvet pouch. He held it in his palm, still closed. "This is very special to me," he said quietly. "I've carried it for a long time." Ariel stared at the pouch, curiosity widening her eyes. "What is it?" she whispered. Elias opened it carefully and placed a small object into her hands. It was a tiny wooden figurine, worn smooth with age. A small boy carved out of pale wood, holding a star above his head. Ariel gasped softly. "It's beautiful." "It was the first thing I ever made," Elias told her. "I carved it when I was 9. It was the only thing I was proud of back then." Ariel held the figurine delicately, as if afraid it might crumble. "You made this when you were a kid?" He nodded. "It reminded me that even when life felt impossible, I could still create something meaningful." Ariel looked down at the figurine, then back at him. "But, why are you giving it to me?" He smiled gently. "Because you remind me of that boy," he said. "You remind me of what it means to create from the heart. I think this belongs with someone who understands its meaning." Her eyes softened. "You want me to have it?" "If you want it," he said softly. "It's yours." Ariel clutched the little wooden figure to her chest, overwhelmed. Then she stepped back, took a breath, and said the last thing he expected. I have something for you too." She reached into her backpack and pulled out a small cloth wrapped around something round. Her hands trembled slightly as she offered it up. "I made you a snow globe," she whispered. "A new one. Just for you." Elias's breath caught. He unwrapped it slowly. Inside the jar was a tiny clay figure of a man, coat, glasses, kind eyes, holding a heart. Her interpretation of him. Handmade. Imperfect. Beautiful. He swallowed hard, overwhelmed. "You made this, for me?" She nodded. "You helped me when no one else did. I wanted you to have something I made with my heart." For a moment, Elias couldn't speak. Finally, he whispered. "I will treasure this forever." The billionaire and the little girl exchanged their handmade symbols, bound not by wealth or status, but by shared history, shared healing, and the quiet truth that hearts recognize one another. The late afternoon sun filtered through the classroom windows, casting warm streaks of gold across the desks and the handmade creations that still decorated the room. The heart project had officially concluded, yet the glow it left behind lingered like a quiet blessing. Most of the students had gone home. The halls were calm. The air was soft, peaceful. Ariel stood with her mother near the doorway of the classroom, her backpack slung over one shoulder, her small fingers wrapped around the tiny wooden figurine Elias had given her. She held it delicately, like it was a promise she never expected to receive. Her mother looked calmer now, relief replacing the storm of worry she'd carried earlier. "Ready to go home, sweetheart?" she asked gently. Ariel nodded, but her eyes drifted toward Elias, who was standing near the display case, admiring the snow globe she'd given him. The glitter shimmered softly as he tilted the jar, the tiny clay figure of himself holding a heart reflecting the warm light. He looked up when he felt her gaze. And he smiled. "Did you want to say goodbye, baby?" her mother asked. Ariel hesitated only a moment before giving a small nod. Together, they walked toward him. When she reached him, Elias crouched again so their eyes met, something he had done so naturally it had become symbolic in itself. He wanted her to know he didn't speak down to her. He saw her. "Thank you again," he said softly, lifting the snow globe a little. "This means more to me than you'll ever know." Ariel's cheeks warmed. "I'm happy you like it." "I don't just like it," he chuckled. "I love it." Her mother stepped closer, offering him a warm, grateful smile. "Mr. Grayson. I can't tell you what your support has meant to us. Thank you for standing up for my daughter." He shook his head gently. She stood up for herself. "I just made sure people listened." Ariel's mother's eyes softened. "Still, you changed something here." Elias glanced around the transformed classroom. The crafting corner, the kindness posters, the handmade gifts proudly displayed. Then he looked back at Ariel. "She changed it," he said. "This all happened because of her." Ariel stared at him with quiet wonder. "Do you really think so?" "I know so," Elias replied. "You showed your classmates, and the adults, what courage looks like. You reminded everyone that kindness matters." Ariel hugged the wooden figurine a little closer. Then her voice wavered softly. Will I see you again?" Her mother's breath caught at the honest vulnerability in the question. Elias's answer came without hesitation. "Yes," he said. "You will." Ariel's eyes brightened. He continued, his voice warm with sincerity. "I'd like to support your school's art program from now on. And I would love for you to help me design some of the projects." Her jaw dropped slightly. "Me?" "Of course," he said. "You have a gift, Ariel. And I want to help you grow it." She threw her arms around him in a sudden, instinctive hug, small, grateful, filled with more emotion than any words could express. Elias closed his eyes briefly and returned the hug with gentle care. Her mother blinked rapidly, wiping tears with the back of her hand. When Ariel finally pulled back, Elias held out his pinky finger. "Let's make a promise," he said. She linked her pinky with his. It felt like sealing something sacred. "I promise," he said softly, "to keep encouraging you, to keep showing up, and to make sure your voice, the one they tried to silence, never goes unheard again." Ariel whispered, "And I promise to keep making things, with my heart." They sealed the promise with a small nod, simple, quiet, perfect. As Ariel and her mother walked toward the door, Elias watched them, the snow globe still warm in his hands. And in that soft, golden-lit moment, the world felt a little kinder. A little safer. A little more hopeful. Because one child's handmade gift had changed an entire school. And one billionaire's willingness to listen had changed a child's life forever. And both carried a piece of each other's courage into every tomorrow that awaited them.